big news that broke yesterday. This is from the New York Times. Just put it up there on the screen, which is that the Inspector General's office within the Department of Transportation, of which Elaine Chao, who is Mitch McConnell's wife, was Secretary of Transportation under President Trump, is basically the Inspector General has referred or has asked the matter to the Department of Justice as to whether she, quote, repeatedly used her office staff to help family members who run a shipping business with extensive ties to China. Obviously, this is a very tricky one, in particular politically, because she is the wife of Senator Mitch McConnell, the leader of Republicans. But this is something which has basically been an open question in Washington for a long time. And most people on the right are not willing to talk about it because the McConnell people will just try to destroy your career. But the truth is that her and her family have immense business ties to a large shipping conglomerate worth hundreds of millions of dollars, which has immense ties to the CCP. And it's hypocritical, in particular, whenever they talk about China and others, that you are not willing to mention these business ties, which rightfully we talk about with Hunter Biden and others as possibly corrupting influences, and not mention Elaine Chao and her own role as the head of two departments of the United States government in her career and her continued family holdings.
So here's what the New York Times says. They say the investigators didn't make a formal finding that Ms. Chao violated ethics rules, but they detailed more than a dozen instances where her office took steps to handle matters related to her father, who, as you said, built up a New York-based shipping company after immigrating to the U.S. from Taiwan in the late 50s, and to her sister, who runs that company now. So some of the things that they talk about, there were sort of like different categories of questionable ethical behavior. Some of it was, you kind of hear this in D.C. a lot, people using their staff, their official staff, as like a personal valet, running errands, checking into repairs, all that kind of stuff. You have some really bizarre, again, questionable ethical behavior where she's asking her staff to promote her dad's book and burnish his biography, asking a CEO of a company to supply a foreword for the book. So using, again, official resources to burnish her father's reputation and biography. You also have questionable behavior about a planned trip to China, where a lot of the stops that were planned had to do with, these were institutions or events that were supported by her family. So just a lot of mixing of her family's personal business financial interests and the official work that she was supposed to be conducting as Secretary of Transportation. It is particularly problematic and hypocritical in a Donald Trump administration because of the supposed hard line that they were taking on China, and because of, they love to talk about Hunter Biden and all of these things and don't say a word about Elaine Chao. But she also is someone who, she's Mitch McConnell's wife, but she was also a Bush administration. She was the head of the Labor Department under Bush. So this is someone who's been in Washington, around Washington for a very long time. And it's quite revealing, this whole report.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, just to give people, again, an idea, her father, James Chao, has been dubbed, quote, the Chinese ship king. And Foremost Group has, quote, ascended to its status in the world according to materials prepared by Transportation Department staff and translated at her behest. And her father, once again, this company, Foremost Group, is responsible, this is from the New York Times, for a large portion of orders at one of China's biggest state-funded shipyards. Anyone with these type of connections to the CCP, if you are serious about stamping out corruption, it should be unacceptable. And she should at least have to prove completely that there's a firewall, a literal firewall in this particular case, against their family's business connections and what she represents in the Department of Transportation. And more importantly, Senator McConnell. Buried within that Trump statement blasting McConnell over impeachment was about his personal family connections to China. Now, look, if he actually cared, he probably should have talked about it whenever he's in office and maybe not appointed her to his own cabinet. But these are details. Who could ask a president in order to look at them?
So I want to read a little bit of her response. She claims that the report exonerates the secretary from baseless accusations, closes the book on an election year effort to impugn her history-making career as the first Asian American woman appointed to a president's cabinet, and her outstanding record as the longest tenured cabinet member since World War II. So there you go.
Wow. Well, Dems aren't the only ones who use identity politics, are they? Okay.
More Rising for you after this.